Cerulean Summer stands out. Why? It sounds so professional where you're like, I do this commercially. Well, what's the difference between this passion project and your commercial work? Because it sounds the same to me.
You find experiences in your own life that you never thought you would write about or incorporate into a story, and it does find its way in there. Something as simple as sensations. That's the problem a lot of people beginning have, is their tempo is way too fast. And so you don't really feel what they're saying.
Keiko, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Ryan. I've been really looking forward to our conversation. Yeah, my name is Keiko. I am the owner of MLA Entertainment, which I founded in 2010. Wow, that's pretty crazy to think about. Time flies. But yeah, and I do a lot of things there. We kind of do, I think the best way to explain it is we do two different things. So on one hand, we do original content, like create original stories. Like this is anything from animation to comics to podcasts, and more recently, audio dramas, also known as fictional podcasts. So that's one thing we do. And then on the other hand, we do creative services. So this is a whole gambit of things, everything from writing and directing services to original art, such as people who are looking for avatars, that sort of thing. But I think I'm probably best known for being a voiceover artist, like a coach and a demo producer for people. So I've been fortunate to work with voice talent all over the world, and it's something I do every day. Probably one of the most rewarding things I do, actually.
I love that. Can you take us through your coaching process?
Well, that is such a cool question because it's never the same. It's different every single time because people approach me and everyone has their own different needs and goals as a voice talent, because the whole world of voiceover, first of all, is huge. Just think about it in your daily life, all the different places that you encounter it without realizing it. If you turn on the TV and you're watching cartoons with your kids or something, that's voiceover. But if you also call into a business and they say, hello, press 1 if you want to hear information about this, that's voiceover too. And all the commercials on the radio, the intercom at stores where you're shopping, it's all around us. And so everyone kind of has their own interests. Some voice talent that come to me are prioritizing commercial work. And then some others, they're like, okay, I want to be an anime. I want to work at Crunchyroll. And so I just really believe in customizing it. I don't have a one size fits all approach at all. So I'm a strong believer in customizing my coaching methods. But at the same time, I have tried and true techniques and paths that people can follow. And so I just offer the appropriate path for that individual.
And you tell creative stories too. Can you take us through your creative storytelling process and also let us know about your newest project?
Well, that is very kind of you to ask about that. Yeah, I think that first and foremost, I would call myself a creative. Writing and directing is probably my greatest love. Even going back when I was a little kid, before I realized what I was doing, I was writing and directing because I started filming my home movies like many of us do, but I kind of took it extra seriously. I was really particular about the music and the writing and all that. And so that kind of naturally developed as I got older and older. I thought I wanted to be a movie star when I was little, but it wasn't until I did theater and then on camera work that I slowly realized, I think I'm more attracted to the behind the scenes stuff. I kind of like, being the mastermind behind the bigger picture. So I started developing my love for storytelling. And yeah, I don't know what it was. I just started developing this bottomless pit of characters and worlds inside of me. And I just had to get them out there. And that's actually what led me to starting MLA Entertainment in the first place. I was just a kid in my backyard, filming little shows, animated live action hybrids. And I did that for a long time. And then more recently, I've honed my skills and I've delved into other genres of storytelling, such as podcasting and most recently, fictional podcasts, also known as audio dramas. And so my current project is Cerulean Summer. So I'm really excited about that one. I'm not sure when this will air, but we're aiming for a mid to late September release. And it's my baby. So I would love to talk with you more about that, actually.
So take us through the process for this newest project. You have an idea. We have so many people out there with an idea and they don't have any idea how to get through those creative blocks and the creative pitfalls. But you have done that and you've already created a trailer, right?
Yes, yeah, we posted the trailer earlier this year. That was just audio, like not audio only, but there weren't any voices in it yet. We hadn't cast the voices yet. And since then we've recorded the first episode, which will be dropping soon. But yeah, I've learned that it's different for everyone. Again, there's no one size fits all when it comes to writing and storytelling, but I am a strong believer in outlines. Outline, outline, outline. And so if you have an idea for a story you want to tell, whether it's a podcast, like where you're interviewing people, getting to learn about their journeys, or if it's like a story, like an audio drama, like Cerulean Summer, whatever it is, you've got to have outlines. And so you get that initial idea. So say you think of, I want to write a story about dragons or whatever it is, then that's the seed. That's where you start. Put that on the page and then try to make a beginning, a middle, and an end. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to mark it somehow so it's not this larger than life. Oh, how do I organize this? Bite it off a little bit at a time and just kind of make it more condensed. And then you elaborate on that initial outline. Your first outline will be pretty broad. The next one will be a little more detailed. And then you'll be able to write a messy first draft. Just try to get through one episode. And then you'll get to another episode. And you polish that draft. And before you know it, you got something. I think the first step is just putting something on that blank page or the blank screen.
And do you have a research process that you like? Do you like to visit the places that you're going to feature or the scenes that you want to create as you write?
That is a wonderful question. There are a lot of people, like you see this in animation, even where if they're going to be making a movie that takes place in a certain country or a city, they will sometimes go visit that place and take photos. For me, I'm just kind of always absorbing life and my personal experiences. And a lot of the things I write about aren't places that really exist, but they may still borrow from places I've been or things I've seen or experienced. So a lot of it is just generated by my own imagination. But it's really funny how you find experiences in your own life that you never thought you would write about or incorporate into a story. And it does find its way in there. Something as simple as sensations, like Cerulean Summer. I really wanted to create that feeling of summertime with the heat, the outdoor sounds, just kind of that nostalgic feeling. And so it was surprisingly easy for me to tap back into those childhood memories of lazy days of summer and incorporate that into the writing. So yeah, I think personal experiences really do enhance your writing.
And it was set in 2000s, right?
That's right.
And I'm remembering the sound design. There's ocean sounds. Can you take us through that process? And how do you decide what to layer to create that feeling?
Yeah, well, sound design is something I've always been fascinated by because I've been mixing audio since 2010. And this is something I also do when I'm producing demo reels. I mean, in a demo, you're basically trying to make it sound like you're listening to a sample of a real television series or a video game. So I'm very experienced in sound design. And so when it came to this particular project, I just really wanted to make it immersive and take advantage of surround sound, like, the headphones. That's the thing with a fictional podcast or audio dramas. The best ones to me are the ones that take full advantage of headphones. So if someone approaches on your left, make sure you pan the audio to the left or like make that person's voice coming from the left side of your headphones or whatever is happening. So I really thought about that when I was putting together the episode. And there's lots of summer sounds like the cicadas, the ocean waves, and the footsteps. I mean, every single sound you hear has to be put in manually, one by one, and it has to make sense and all blend together. But that's one of my favorite parts. It's like cooking, making something special and seeing the final product. So yeah, I really get into that.
And what tools are you using to create these three-dimensional soundscapes?
Yeah, well, sometimes I do it like as a Foley artist. Sometimes you have to be your own Foley artist. Like if you're looking for a sound effect, because there's a lot of great sound effects in the Creative Commons and on sites like that you have to choose from. But sometimes you can't find a good sound effect, the specific one you're looking for. So you have to get creative. Like I'll use my microphone right here. And if someone like gives you a hug in the scene, then I've got to, hold my sleeve up to the microphone and brush my sleeve. It's really silly sometimes, but if it works, it works.
I remember as a kid, I visited Universal Studios and they took us back stage to see the Foley artists at work, and they were showing us all the tools they used. It was fascinating. I think the silliness is fun to watch.
Yes, isn't it? It's just like magic. It's like a magic act getting to see a magician's secrets.
Absolutely. How do you meet people to be able to cast the right character for the right part? Because as you're creating that script, you have an idea in your mind of what that person should sound like.
Yes, I'm very particular when it comes to casting. I'm usually very specific on what I'm looking for each character. And it's really handy, now that I'm producing audio dramas, having my experience and background in voice acting and that community, because there are a lot of great resources to recruit different voice talent. There's places like Casting Call Club. There are even social media. Like literally, if you put out a post saying, "Hello, I'm recruiting voice talent, come audition here," and you leave a link to a Google form or something with the information. There's so many ways you can do it. And then a lot of the times though, I poach, not poach, but I hunt down my talent myself. If you aren't getting the auditions you're looking for, you have to sometimes seek out the talent yourself. And that's something I do a lot. So I'll go on different websites, listen to people's demos, and if it's like, that is what I'm looking for, then I will send them a message and say, "Hey, could you give us an audition?" That's actually what happened with the main actress for Cerulean Summer. I was looking for a very specific voice type, something similar to Stephanie Morgenstern, for people who are familiar with things like that. She was the original voice of Sailor Venus, actually. And so I was looking for a voice like that. Also, Jennifer Hale. She's another famous voice actress known for like Totally Spies, a whole lot of other things. I was looking for a voice like that. Turns out that's a pretty rare voice type because I was receiving so many wonderful auditions, very talented people, but it just wasn't the tone I was having in my mind. And one day I was doing some research on audio dramas because I was like, this is my new medium. I need to get some knowledge. And I just happened to come across an interview with Melissa Del Toro Schaffner, who voices the main character Minnie in Cerulean Summer. And she was talking about her show Untold Tales, and I just froze. I was like, this is what I've been looking for. And so I shot her a message and said, "I would really love it if you could audition." And the rest is history.
That's so fun. I can imagine whenever you're checking out these other shows and these other resources, I get lost in the story. I like to get lost in the telling, but you have a level of discernment since you've been doing this for so many years that maybe you notice things that we don't notice. What are those things? Because when I'm listening to a show like yours, I'm just enjoying it. But if you're listening to a show, I imagine you're noticing these little things that we don't notice.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that because that's the goal. Your pure enjoyment and just objective viewing experience. That's the goal. If we've done a good job, you aren't thinking about those things. But you're right. I cannot listen to anything without thinking about, "Oh, okay, that's a good voice," or, "Oh, I might have read this line a little differently. If I was coaching this person, I might have told them to do this instead." And like the sound effects, like I'm always paying attention to levels. I'm like, "Oh, I would have upped the volume on that or lowered the volume on that." It's miserable, but you can't help it.
It's harder to enjoy the show.
It is. It's really hard, especially, well, it's easier when I'm watching someone else's work, but if it's something I've made, you can, and I'm sure you understand this, as someone who produces your own content as well, you kind of only hear the mistakes or the things that you were really working extra on. You're like, "Oh, I think I could have pushed that a little more," or you're like, "Oh, that really did pay off." You're just constantly thinking about the creation and editing process rather than just enjoying it. So to hear people like you say, "I was just lost in the story," it's like, thank you. That makes the struggle worth it.
So what do you notice? What are the mistakes that often pop out to you?
Well, that's a good question too. Well, I could kind of cover every different subject, but voice acting specifically, I always notice things like we call them mouth clicks, mouth noises. And so I really notice that because, and I'm not cleaning myself right now. So I'm probably providing so many wonderful mouth noises. But in a finished demo, for example, you don't want any of that. So I go through like second by second, really zoomed into those wavelengths, and I remove every single noise, sometimes manually, to get it super clean. And so I'm always paying attention to that. Like I'll be watching a national commercial on TV and I'm like, I just heard a mouth click. That's a national commercial. Come on. Things like that. And so, and yeah, just volume levels. I notice a lot, but that's also a personal preference. Like some people really like the music to be really in the background where you don't really notice it. And then some people like to really hear the music. So you got to take that with a grain of salt too. One person's preference for levels may be different from someone else's. So you just hope to find kind of a good happy medium that makes everyone happy.
I understand what you're talking about. Before I started getting into audio, I certainly enjoyed things a lot more because I didn't notice these little things like that.
You can't go back. The
You
good old
can't go
days.
back. You can't unknow what you know. It's they call it the curse of knowledge for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why if we lived 1,000 years, it probably wouldn't be very fun.
That's true.
As much as immortality would be nice, it might actually be a curse.
Yeah. So when you're listening to these other shows, that part of the audio, what are the other things that jump out to you as things that people sometimes make mistakes on? Because I know we have creators who are listening who don't want to
Mhm.
make those mistakes that might throw
Right.
someone like you off.
Yeah, well that's a good question. If you have a lot of different people in a project, like if it is an audio drama or even if it's just an interview show where you have multiple guests, you want to try to make sure every guest's volume levels are the same or pretty close because that is distracting when one person's super loud and then the other person's super quiet. And so I'm always listening for things like that and also making sure you get rid of all the background noise because not everyone has a fancy studio, or even if they do, maybe they don't, maybe they still have a lot of background noise. And so you want to make sure if you're creating a product that that's really important where everything's super clean, that you do remove it. It kind of, my hearing's probably not what it was 10 years ago because I have to turn up the volume so loud so often to make sure everything is clean. It's like, okay, I think everything's gone, but let me just turn this up to 90 for 2 seconds just to make sure it really is silent in the background. So you also have to look out for peaking, which is simply when someone talks too loud and it kind of makes that painful feeling, kind of just makes the speakers blare real loud. That's really important with voice acting, especially. You don't want peaking. Those are some things to look out for.
AI, has that changed your process at all?
Ooh, AI. AI. It is kind of the bane of all voice actors in particular. You know, in certain applications in life, it can be a wonderful thing. I think that it can help people out and streamline certain processes. But for the acting world and the creative community, I think that it is kind of a serious threat because I mean, there's certain shows that have tried to make the whole cast AI, and it sounds terrible. It sounds terrible, and the fans don't like it. Um, the voice acting community certainly doesn't like it. And so I just hope that we're able to keep it at bay, use AI where it's a helpful tool rather than replacing human beings and doing what they do best, which is creating art. Even if that AI image is perfect looking, it wasn't made by a human. And I think that's kind of sad to lose that art. So I just hope that we're able to protect human creations as we advance.
Me too. I know that the fear is real out there, but there's also some excitement on the technical side, right? So maybe you won't have to turn it up to 90, right? And hurt your ears.
One can only hope. Exactly. That's well said. That's where I think AI is a useful tool, is making things like that more streamlined, making organically created human creations more streamlined to put out there. But, a lot of voice actors are terrified because they will look up and their voice has been cloned without their permission. And so you have to be careful sometimes when you're auditioning for certain clients because sometimes they're a little shady or they'll do something like clone your voice without your permission. And so there's literally contracts that people have to sign now to say I will not use your voice for artificial intelligence, things like that. So as long as we're protecting ourselves, I definitely just hope we can use it to make our jobs easier.
Shifting back to your project and the real humans who are behind these voices that bring the story to life, the point of view that you play with in your newest project, can you take us behind the scenes of what points of view that you're using to create and weave the story?
Oh, so as far as like the perspective the story's being told from?
Yes.
Yeah, so this story really, there's three main characters, but the main protagonist is Minnie. And we start the story with some narration of this character as an adult. So probably like in current times, the day we're living in. But the story itself that she's going to be telling us about occurred in the year 2000 when she was 16. And so that's kind of fun. We go back and forth throughout the whole story of her narration as an adult, saying, this is what happened, this is what I was doing. So we go from that to her 16-year-old self and what happened to her when she was in this town. Yeah, and so the story is about this girl who is the daughter of two renowned archaeologists, and she's been shuffled from here and there for her whole life because archaeologists tend to travel a lot. And she just chooses one summer to kind of relax, spend it in one place for once. And so she decides to spend summer vacation with her grandparents in a coastal town called Cerulean. And so that is what adult Minnie, that's the main character's name, that is what she's telling us about, is what happened to her during this special summer.
In your storytelling soundscapes and all the things that you're working to create this magic act of storytelling, what are the other dimensions that you pay close attention to as you're creating?
The great thing about the audio medium is it forces the listener to completely utilize their imagination. It's really interesting because I did start on the stage and then I moved to on camera work and then I was making animations. And so for the longest time, I held the belief very foolishly that the superior form of storytelling was through a visual medium. And so that was the only way I considered putting my stories out there before. But I had been using this certain style, this kind of hybrid of animation and live action for years. And when I finished my last project, I was like, I've got to figure out something else. This is way too labor intensive. This isn't as fun as it could be. And so I started looking for a new medium, and that led me to audio dramas. And what changed my mind about the superior form of storytelling, which there isn't one, they're all amazing. But I ran across a podcast, an audio drama called Girl in Space by Sarah Ray Warner, and it was completely amazing. It blew my mind. It showed me that when done right, the audio format could be kind of one of the most powerful, unforgettable experiences from a storytelling standpoint. It's almost like when you have a dream. It's something very personal. You can try to explain what your dream was about to someone all you want, but they'll never get it because it's such a personal experience. It's kind of like that with audio. You know, it's just so intimate, so personal, and it really leaves a strong impression. And so that's the great thing about this format is you really have to get in there. You have to, like Minnie, for example, in the story, she's always explaining what she's looking at, what it felt like. But you don't just stop there. You have to use the sound design to really put the listener there. And so if we're walking down, this gravel road by the ocean, you've got to hear those rocks crunching underneath the character's feet. You got to hear the ocean on your left and maybe some crickets or whatever on your right. And that is the beauty of it. It's not just the story, it's the atmosphere and the music. We're very fortunate. We have a very talented composer named Jeffrey Penn Johnson. He's worked on things like Ben 10, Spider-Man, and he created an original soundtrack for the series. And that's a whole other identity that really shapes the feeling and the personality and soul of Cerulean Summer.
Tell us more about the music and how you collaborate with the musician and the composer to create those feelings.
Yeah, it was just meant to be. Honestly, the first person I reached out to ask if they would be willing to make music for the show was the person who agreed to do it. And so Jeffrey, I was listening. It was actually on Casting Call Club. That's a website. It's kind of hit and miss. Some projects are like, what the heck? And some projects are incredible on there. But it's a wonderful platform, especially when you're getting started to find opportunities. And composers can submit their work on there as well. And I was listening to different demos and samples from composers. And I ran across Jeffrey's demo, or I went to his website or something that was posted on there. And he had all the different sounds I needed for this show. Because just like with the voice actors, I'm very particular when it comes to music too. And so I had very specific example tracks, like from other shows or games. And I would say, okay, we need 16 songs. Here's song number 1. Could you make something that is very similar to this one? Has these kinds of sounds, these kinds of feelings. And he was just a genius. He was able to create these original pieces that still totally captured what I had in my mind, based on these examples. So it was wonderful. And I'm not someone who thinks music should just blend in. I like it to stand out, not overpower a scene or anything, be in harmony, but I like music to be its own character, a main character of a movie or whatever it is. And I think the music's really, really good in Cerulean Summer, if I must say so myself.
Whenever you're imagining the characters, what they may look like, do you think in animation? Do you think in live action? What do you think of as you're creating it in your mind's eye?
I always see it like a movie. I definitely visualize and I see it kind of in shots. So whether I'm making a comic, whether I'm making an audio drama, whatever it is, I see it in my head, still in that visual medium, which is helpful, when you're writing the story and trying to explain what happens, because I can see it so clearly. I'm able to explain it to the listener what they should be imagining. And so, yeah, definitely. And I'm just really happy with the music because it's like you said, music is so important and it has a way of stirring up emotions that we otherwise have trouble accessing. I don't know what it is. Music's just so powerful. It's the universal language, as they say. And so I definitely, because a lot of audio dramas don't have music or it's very minimal. And I wanted to make sure mine had music, a full soundtrack for every kind of situation. Not every scene has a song in it, but for very important moments where it just needs that extra touch, the extra flavor to stir up those emotions, definitely. So we're very fortunate.
You started by telling us a little bit about your coaching process. Can you take us to a specific scene and how you improved it by bringing that actor's inner self out more with that voice coaching?
Yes, that is one of my favorite parts of the whole process is working with voice actors. And so we have a very talented cast working on the show. We have people who have been in, very famous games, national commercials like Alfa Romeo, L'Oreal, lots of indie games too, just all over the map. And so I'm very fortunate that I don't have to, work very hard to get amazing performance out of these people. But my coaching experience really helps me make sure we don't waste time, getting to the heart of the scene. And so I'm able to just chime in and say, hi, on that one line in particular, could you approach it from this angle instead? And like, okay, got it. And before we start a scene, that's another thing. Before we record a scene, I just kind of give everyone a rundown of what the main goal of the scene is, kind of some main things to keep in mind as we're moving through the script. And so that way, as the performers are doing the scene together, they know what to do and they won't be surprised by anything. And so that's the wonderful thing about Cerulean Summer is we record each episode together like on a live call. And that's really fun because you don't always get to do that. A lot of times as voice actors, you record by yourself in a dark, lonely booth with, no air and it's kind of lonely. But with this show, we record together. And so that really just lends to much stronger performances where you can bounce off of one another's energy. So it's more believable conversation. And that's very important with audio dramas in particular because it is audio only. So if the conversation sounds unnatural, it's really going to stand out like a sore thumb.
So this project, you had the privilege of working with total pros, but I want to know the challenge. I want to know the struggle. So maybe you can imagine a previous project where you had to coach somebody through a scene.
In my coaching experience, some people come to me and they're well along on their career, like my voice cast, and they're naturally really skilled. But some people come to me who are just getting started. Sometimes they have little to no acting experience. And it's hard sometimes for these people to break some natural habits or just really get out of their shells. I think the main thing is confidence. A lot of people aren't very confident and they just don't know their own instrument well. And so that's something I really like to do is to get to know the person first and learn why they're doing this in the first place. It's like, where do you see yourself? Do you want to be in video games? Do you want to do commercials? If so, what kind? And so I really love learning about the individual, kind of what their personal brand is. And then from there, you can kind of lay out their archetypes, what they do well, what some voices they can do are that really stand out. And then from there, it's all about building acting technique because it's called voice acting. And so it's wonderful if you can do 100 unique voices, but at the end of the day, the acting is what's going to book you jobs. So if the acting isn't there, you're in trouble. And that's what you got to work on. And so that's my favorite part of it. I just have a kind of a lot of techniques that I've gathered through my stage work my camera work and my work behind a microphone. I'm able to approach acting from multiple angles. And I think that kind of gives me a bit of an edge when helping voice actors build their skills because I'm not looking at it through a narrow lens. I've been an audio engineer for a long time. I've directed, I've acted myself. So I'm able to get to the heart of the problem. And if they do a line and I'm able to say, okay, your tempo is way too fast. And that's a problem a lot of people beginning have is their tempo is way too fast. And so you don't really feel what they're saying. So it's little things like that that you just make them aware of their habits that they need to improve on or be aware of, as well as make them aware of habits that are good that they need to really seize on and bring to the forefront extra.
You mentioned confidence at the start there. I know we have people who are struggling with confidence to get started on this. Before we talk about those strategies like tempo and pacing and pitch and tone, how do you help people overcome those confidence issues?
Well, I think a lot of people have been told things or they compare themselves. That's a thief of all joy, comparison, as you know. And so a lot of people get into voice acting, for example, because they want to be like this person that they're a big fan of. And so they're really focused on trying to sound like them. And sometimes they're able to do it well, but sometimes they just do not have the voice print or the same instrument. It's just totally out of their comfort zone. And of course, I'm a believer in, trying out new things, seeing what you can do that you may have not ever known you could do, but also don't force something on yourself. I always tell people try to focus on what makes you stand out more than what makes you blend in because that person you're a fan of, they're awesome, but they're already there. They're filling that space. So what can you bring to the table? And I think the sooner you're able to get someone to bring authenticity to what they do, the more confident they're going to be because it's more natural for them. It's easier to be yourself. And so stop fighting yourself or thinking you're less than this person you're a fan of. That person already exists, but there's only one you. So be the best you can be.
Fantastic advice.
Yeah.
So they've overcome the confidence problems. They're going to be the best them they could be. You've given them this advice about slowing down and not going too fast. What are some other techniques and strategies that you find yourself recommending more often than not?
Something that really comes to mind a lot is to stop being automatic. A lot of people, especially people once they have had training and they do become really skilled with what they do, they have a tendency to just slide into the booth, put out a quick read because they know it's going to sound good and they go out and eat lunch. They're done for the day. You never want to be automatic when it comes to acting or really anything you do. There needs to be intention. You need to think about it. And I know some people don't like to over rehearse, and that's true. You don't want to over rehearse because that can come through too, but you should always be thinking on some level. You should have made a decision before you perform. And whether it's imagining your scene partner, like I said, sometimes you record on your own. Most of the time we do record on our own. And so try to figure out who your scene partner is. Sometimes you have no clue because you just get your lines and that's it. But I always tell people, make a decision. Just decide who you think you're talking to in this scene. You may be wrong, but your performance is going to be so much stronger simply because you made that decision as opposed to just talking to the air, having no clue who you're talking to. So act with intent. Don't just be automatic, put out something, don't just perform it the way you think it should sound. Really think about it. So that's what I would say.
As our famous Shakespeare said, the world's a stage. This acting advice can apply to so many other professions too, can't it?
True. Yeah, that's the wonderful thing. The arts, they're going to help you in so many different areas of life because it takes a lot of discipline. As you know, with any craft you invest yourself in, there's a learning curve, there's a level of commitment and dedication because if you don't keep working on your craft, whatever it is, you're not going to improve or you're not going to build your business and grow your business and become better known in whatever community you're in, whatever circle you're in. You have to stay on top of it. And so that's why you really got to find what you love. Because if you don't love what you're doing, it's just going to be a grind and it's not going to be fun. But if it's something you really love, the late nights are worth it. It's like, yes, I'm exhausted, but I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to do it again because I can't help it.
Have you ever coached anyone through burnout?
Yeah, sometimes people come to me, people that I really respect, that I see them booking all the time. And they'll come to me and say, Keiko, I don't know what it is. I kind of feel like I don't know how to act anymore. I don't know what it is. I'm not feeling it. I can't connect. And so I think that burnout is a very real reality. And so you've got to take breaks. I think that is important to note because no matter how much you love something, you can get burnout and you can get overwhelmed. Time management is kind of an ongoing struggle. It's something I'm still working out. That's kind of my main goal. Like your New Year's resolutions is like, okay, I'm going to try to manage my time a little bit better and not pull all nighters all the time. So here I am. It's August. Don't even care to admit how many all nighters I've pulled, but it is what it is. It's a work in
Do what
progress.
I say, not what I do, right?
Exactly. Yes. I need to take my own advice here. So, but again, I think if it's something you truly love, you'll work through the burnout. But there's nothing wrong with taking a break from what you're doing and just kind of reminding yourself why you started in the first place. I think sometimes when we're working all the time, the original intention can get lost a little. You're so focused on building that resume or, pleasing all these people that you forget why you're doing it in the first place. So that's why you have to make sure you have time in your schedule to do something that just feeds your soul, whether it's just playing video games, watching TV, or listening to music. You've got to have that recharge time. If you're working from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're going to burn out before long. So I always make sure to do that, no matter how much I've got to do, no matter how much I've got on my plate. I make sure to have some kind of quiet time during the day. And so I think that is a big key. Try to get whatever rest you can and find some time to just calm down and do something that you enjoy.
Maybe with an audio drama.
Exactly. Yes. I know that's kind of funny. My ways of, chilling out and calming down usually involves another kind of work. I'm just a workaholic, so I can't really help it. But it is different though, because I do a lot of commissioned work and work for clients. And I'm very fortunate that I love everything I do. But of course, I think number one is directing these passion projects of mine, such as Cerulean Summer. So whenever I get my client work done for the day, it's like, okay, time to roll up the sleeves and work on my show.
That's the space I'm in right now. I'm in the fun. I know that another place that people like to recharge is networking or conferences or online forums. Can you take us through some of those sources for connection in this industry?
So there's a lot of different things, everything from Discord servers to, again, social media. There's a lot of circles. It's hilarious. If you put out, a post on social media saying, hi, I'm a new voice actor here. I would like to make some friends in the community. You will be attacked. Like they will come for you and say, hey, I'll be your friend. It's hilarious. It's for the most part a very warm and welcoming community. There's places like Voice Acting Club. That's a wonderful organization that really helps up and coming talent. I've also got a community server myself, so maybe we could leave that in the description or something. But yeah, so I think it's really important to surround yourself by like-minded individuals and people who are kind of on the same wavelength. And so, yeah, Discord's got a lot of different places and social media. So yeah, lots of different
Are
places.
there specific like audiobooks or YouTube channels where people can go to learn more? Or maybe some of your coaching clients have been directed to some of these sources for improving their voice acting?
Yeah, there are. Well, it's interesting. A lot of voice actors do double as voice coaches. And so, like, that's what I do. I'm a voice actor, but I'm also a coach. I primarily coach these days because I found that that was my true love. I really just enjoy, helping someone else realize their talent and gaining a lot of confidence. That is just, it's the most magical feeling in the world. I love directing, and coaching is just another form of directing to me. And so I really enjoy that. And there's a lot of other voice actors. There's like Aaron Linquist out there, and oh gosh, so many. I could refer you to several. But yeah, you just got to find a coach that works for you. And that's another reason I got into this is because a lot of coaches out there are kind of, it's a little inaccessible sometimes, especially if you're on a budget, as most people are, especially starting artists. But yeah, that's kind of one of the things that got me into this is because I saw that a lot of the options available were pretty pricey. Literally, like even when it comes to demo reels, if you want to get one made in studio, sometimes it can cost up to $1,000, sometimes 2,000 I've seen. It's crazy. And I was just seeing how for a lot of up and coming talent or, even moderately experienced people, this was kind of a, a barricade for them. It was the one thing keeping them from being able to put their foot in the door and even have a shot, because a demo is a voice actor's calling card. And so if you don't have a good demo, it's really hard to make yourself known and book a lot of jobs. And so that's kind of what inspired me to get in there, is make a more accessible option for people.
What makes a great calling card? What makes a great demo? Do you have to have a certain formula there?
Hmm. Yeah, well, there's a whole lot of different demos actually. So you've got your character demo, you've got animation demos, video game demos, commercial demos, promo demos. There's a whole lot. The most common ones are character and commercial, though. Those are kind of the only main ones you really need, if especially when you're getting started. The more niche demos you've got, of course, that's awesome, especially if you notice you tend to book a lot in a certain genre, then you can really have a specific demo for that clientele. But character and commercial, that's really good, especially if you're seeking representation. Agencies really won't even look at you if you don't have a commercial demo. So when it comes to demos, you just want to really hone in on what you do well. And so if there's a voice you can do technically, but if you booked a job where you had to sustain that voice for an hour or a 4-hour session and you can't sustain the voice, then that shouldn't be in your demo. Even if you can technically do it, you might not want to show it. So just show off in your demo what you can do well and reliably. And demos are short. And sometimes people don't even listen past the first 15 seconds. So you've really got to keep attention spans in mind. Keep it really interesting and engaging. And keep in mind the current market and what's trendy. Like 20 years ago, a lot of voice acting was really wacky and larger than life, really over the top. And these days, grounded cinematic performances are really in. So you always want to make sure you've got some wacky performances, some grounded. And then in commercials, especially with commercial demos, you really need to sound grounded, like a real human being. Sounds funny to say that, but it's sometimes hard for people to sound like a real human being, to sound like someone you could talk to, just a friend on the street. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. Good quality too. Don't record it with a potato. Don't record it with, your laptop mic for sure.
What other mistakes do people make in these kinds of commercial reels?
Well, sometimes people self-produce demos, and that's kind of the first thing people tell you not to do, is do not make your own demo, because you can tell if it's homemade. So you want a professional or someone who really knows their craft well to produce your demo. If you are a voice actor and you happen to be really good at audio mixing, then go for it. But you can definitely tell, especially it's more competitive than ever. The market's super saturated. So you've got to have a high quality demo. And so you can really tell when someone didn't have it produced professionally or by someone who knows what they're doing. So sometimes mistakes that stand out to me are the demo's too long. Sometimes it's way
What's an
too
ideal
short.
length?
Yeah, well, I think for character-based demos, there's a little bit of wiggle room. It's always changing. About a minute 15 is good for a character demo. Sometimes there's even a cut for agencies that's down to 60 seconds. But a minute 15 is generally good. A commercial demo, I like to make shorter. So closer to a minute, but a little bit over, a little bit less is okay. So they're not very long. A couple years ago, 90 seconds was a good standard for character-based demos, but I've just noticed things are getting shorter. So especially with, all this short running content like TikTok, all those different things, people are used to quick information. So it's kind of the same thing with demos. People don't have all day. And so things are generally getting shorter. So I notice running time. I notice if the acting is just kind of the same voice the whole time. Like this is a demo reel. This is kind of giving people a sample of what it's like to work with you on any kind of project. So you don't want to just have the same kind of tone or voice the whole time. You want each segment, there's usually room for about 6. You want each segment to be wildly different from the other one. So each one needs to offer something different, just to show like what a whiz you can be if you get hired for a job. Even if you don't have a very big range, still do whatever you can to make the motions different or the feeling you give off extremely different. And that's what I would suggest. So, and just the music and the sound effects, just the overall mix, you can tell when it's made at home. So just make sure you know what you're doing or get it professionally made.
And you mentioned the prize for a professional reel. What is that again?
It can be anywhere, like there's a whole lot of wiggle room, but I've seen, especially if you get it made in an actual recording studio, like a lot of voice talent record at home now. They have broadcast quality booths at home now. So a lot of opportunities have opened up. But if you go into a studio to get it made, it can be anywhere from 1,000, sometimes two. It's pretty bizarre. So that again, that's one of the reasons I stepped in, because I think there's room. I think there's room for all of us. There's room for the super expensive people, but there's also room for something a little bit more accessible to give these people a chance.
And once you have your reel done, what's the next step?
But the next step is really getting it out there. It's marketing. So my whole demo process, I start by meeting the person, of course, and just kind of getting to know what they're looking for, what they want out of this demo. I analyze them and see what they do best. Sometimes I'll listen to other samples they've recorded in the past or auditions they've done. And I just make a list of, okay, this is what we need to show off in the demo. And then I write it and then I send it to them. We record it together most of the time. Sometimes they prefer to record solo, but I usually direct them on it. Then I mix it and it's done. And so it's all about putting it out there at that point. And so if they've got a website, I make sure it's posted there on their social media. Like you can pin a video to your profile a lot of times. I tell them, pin it to your profile, make it where people have to listen to it. And then it's also about direct marketing, cold emailing. And so literally approaching clients and studios and saying, hey, here's my demo. I'd love to work with you. So that's what it's all about. And just building your circles. I really think it's important to kind of develop your own crew, have a small group of friends that kind of just cheer each other on, and you can really boost each other up. And when one person books a job, they can recommend their friend and vice versa. And that's how it grows into something big.
Of all those strategies, if you had to pick just one as being the most useful, which one would that be?
I think really putting yourself out there, visibility. It's important. First of all, have a really good product. If it's a bad demo, you don't want everyone to see it because it will take a while to kind of, cleanse everyone's palate. So make sure you've got a good demo, first of all, or at least something you're proud of at this point in your journey. But then it's all about visibility. It can be the best demo in the world, but if you don't let people know you exist, it's not going to go anywhere. And so a lot of people aren't into social media. Totally get it. But if you are the slightest bit open to it, there is a lot of good that can come from it. And again, cold marketing, direct marketing, that is a wonderful tool. And working with friends, I'm a strong believer in collaboration. If you're not booking anything, if you're not seeing the opportunities you're looking for, create your own and get together with some like-minded friends. Or maybe your friend is good at writing. Maybe they can write something. Maybe this other friend of yours is good at mixing. They can mix it. Get together and make something and put it out there, because that's going to stir up attention. It's going to get eyes looking in your direction. So even if it's a voluntary project you're doing, show yourself working. And so that's another thing I really encourage. Even if you aren't booking jobs, always keep posting. Show yourself in the booth, recording something, showing off, like reading a monologue or something. Just show you're actively working, even if you aren't booking a lot of jobs. And that's going to get people's eyes on you, and they're going to get used to seeing you in that booth and being comfortable with the idea of working with you.
The monetization strategies for those side projects, how you go about promoting those the exact same way, or is there maybe a different formula for getting your show and your original work, maybe with your friends, out there for people to listen to?
There is a wonderful kind of template to base your rates, like as far as voice acting specifically. There's a template you can use to base especially if you're freelancing, kind of get your indie rates sorted. There's a good template out there that you can base your rates off of, whether it's for animation or video games, what have you. And then there are voluntary projects too, because sometimes people will hold projects that are voluntary, but they provide IMDb credit. And that's wonderful, because that's a big part of it, is you're building your resume. And so I'm always open to things like that. I really encourage that too. So you just got to do what works for you, because you can always try one way, especially as a freelancer. Lay down your rates, put them out there. And if you just see it's not really working, if you're not really getting a lot of positive feedback, or you're not booking a lot with those rates, go back to the drawing board and adjust them. So that's the beauty of it, is you can have that control. And once you see something that works for you, you go with that. Like even me, I've adjusted it throughout the years, whether the economy's crazy. I mean, it's totally different than it was 5 years ago, even, you know, And so you got to keep adjusting with the times and just see what works for you and makes everyone happy, but keeps your bills paid too.
Awesome. And so that's the individual rate. What about the show itself? Promoting the show itself, monetizing that show itself, like your upcoming project. I hope you make money with that. Is that a possibility, maybe?
I hope to one day. That's actually interesting. This is purely out of passion, this project, actually.
What do you mean? It sounds so professional where you're like, I do this commercially. Well, what's the difference between this passion project and your commercial work? Because it sounds the same to me.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. And it's funny because, you put hundreds of hours into a project and sometimes it is a passion project. And so that's really what I do. At my company, my creative services are where I make an income. And then my original content, that's where I just play. That's where I have fun. And I think that's super important. Whatever field you're in or whatever craft you're in, even if you do it for a living, make sure you do something in that craft that is still just for fun.
If enough people listen to it, you might get paid, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the hope, is we're definitely open to it. So especially since we're delving into audio drama. This is actually the first audio drama that I've ever produced. So I've worked in lots of other mediums, but this is the first audio drama. So we're really going to see where this goes and who knows what the future holds. I'm definitely positive about it.
I've heard of these kinds of things taking off, and there is some money involved, depending on the kind of platforms. Do you have a plan for how to monetize this eventually, or are you right now just, I want to get my passion and my work out there?
Yeah. At this point, it is really about that passion and getting it out there. So, but definitely, I think Spotify, I'm really looking at. And because YouTube, it's really out of your control. Well, a lot of these things are because you're fighting the algorithm, things like that. So, but I'm very interested in marketing. That's something I really love. That's the thing because a lot of artists, they like doing the creative part, but they don't like the business side. But I love both sides. So I'm really going to put a lot of effort into spreading the word about it, or sharing little teasers and things like that, and just trying to grow the audience. So as the audience grows, we will reevaluate the options and see kind of just where the most traffic comes from after we put in those efforts. So I'll be really curious to see where it goes.
So we know quality is one of the big differentiating factors with this new project. What are some other things that make it stand out? Cerulean Summer stands out. Why?
I think because it is the story, I think, is just so touching, so special. And I think it just has a universal appeal to it. And because I come from such a broad background of different forms of storytelling, I just feel like I'm really creating a feast for the senses, because sometimes people mainly just work in audio dramas, but I'm used to visual storytelling and, voice acting and live action work, all of it. And so I just feel like we're just hitting it with everything 100%. We've got amazing music. Not all fictional podcasts have a big soundtrack like this. And the voice cast, even everyone has their own voice. That's super important too. You've got to know who's talking when, you can't even see them. So everyone's got to really be unique. And our voice cast is insane. It's just like a TV show. It's just in an audio format. And the cool thing is, though, we will be posting a visual version on YouTube. So if you're someone who just prefers to have some sort of visuals with the content you consume, then you're in good hands because there will be a visual version.
What do you mean there's going to be a visual version?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm working with an incredible background artist named Bosco, and he made all the backgrounds in the show. I made some of them, but all the beautiful ones he made. So you will get to see the town of Cerulean. You will get to see Minnie's grandparents' house on this beautiful green hill by the ocean. When it's nighttime, it's going to be nighttime. So that's how it's going to go. When you're listening to the show, as you're listening to a scene, you will see the background showing the location of that scene. And then on top of that background, you'll also see the characters who are in the scene. So if Minnie's talking or her friend Trace is talking or Leo's talking, you're going to see that character. And I created the artwork for the characters. And so we've got a bunch of different expressions. Like if one of the characters is angry or sad, we have an expression that suits that emotion. So it'll be really fun. And then the text will be on screen too. So
And what's the illustration style?
I would say it's leaning realistic. I'm someone who's always loved Japanese animation, but also Western animation as far as like Young Justice, some shows like that. And so there's a realistic, it's leaning realistic, but you can definitely see a little bit of an influence from shows like Marvel animated series, and things like that as well. So, but leaning realistic with a little bit of anime slash superhero show stylizing.
You've been so generous to share all the different dimensions of this industry. Do you have one last piece of advice for someone who wants to break into this industry? What would you tell that person?
I think I would tell them that it is never a waste of time doing something creative. A lot of people have this little side hobby or something they've always kind of been drawn to. Maybe they paint. Maybe they are really into sports or into drawing or whatever it is. But I don't think they see the value in it or think that it is something worthwhile to really indulge and nurture. And so I always tell people it is never a waste of time doing something creative. That's our slogan, actually, at MLA Entertainment, is keep being creative. I really believe in it because you're either going to inspire yourself or someone else. It's a win-win. So take the time to focus on what you do well and what really makes you happy and feed your soul, and do something creative. You don't have to be the best in the world. You don't even have to make a living on it, even if it's just like a side hustle or something. Do something that feeds your soul and makes you feel like a little kid again. I think that's so important, to stay in touch with that creativity. Don't just get lost in the shuffle, and don't get lost on the hamster wheel of life. You've got to do something that kind of leaves behind a body of work, no matter how big or small. Do something that only you can do, because everyone's creative fingerprint's different. And that's the beautiful thing. We were talking about AI earlier. That's the beauty of human made content, is only one person can draw a subject their way. And I think that is just beautiful. So if there's anything that you love to do, really think about indulging it, and don't think it's a waste of time. You have no clue where it could take you. I mean, I had no clue when I was a kid and I started this company that I would be here all these years later, having worked with all these creatives around the world and doing something that I truly love to wake up and do. You don't know what could be waiting for you. So take a leap, come up with a little plan, make a little budget for yourself if you need to, and go for it.
Keiko, where can people find you online? Where can they find MLA Entertainment?
So we're kind of all over. If you want to just look up some information on us, read about our services, things like that. If you're interested in coaching or getting a demo made, then you can find some information at mlaentertainment.card.co. So check that out. I'm also on Twitter/X, whatever you prefer to call it. And that is at MLA_ENT. So those are probably the best places to find me. Also YouTube at MLA Entertainment. And as far as Cerulean Summer, it will be posted on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, your favorite apps, and YouTube. We're aiming for a mid to late September premiere. So depending on when this comes out, maybe you've seen it or maybe it's still on the way, but be on the lookout for that. You can get updates from just following our social media or visiting my website. There's also Cerulean Summer podcast.card. So we will keep that updated as well. So you can come and say hello. I'm always happy to work with new people or just say hi.
Excellent. Thank you again for sharing your talents and your wisdom and pulling back the curtain on not only the industry, but this exciting new Cerulean Summer project.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much for putting a spotlight on so many different perspectives. I think that is such a beautiful thing. And it really helps open up people's eyes to this big world that we've got out there. So thank you for everything you do too.
I appreciate that.